I looked back over that list of questions that Kelly sent out yesterday, that final list, and I looked at that.
Good afternoon. I'm Walt Bauer, and I'd like to welcome you to the Human Development Institute's second fall seminar. We welcome the participants who are joining us online through Zoom, as well as the participants who are here with us at the live presentation at the University of Kentucky. Our presenters will provide an opportunity for questions this afternoon. We welcome questions from all our participants. Please type your questions in the chat box or use your mic if you are online. You can mute yourself, you can mute your mic, and you can mute your video in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. Should you have any questions about CEUs, you can contact me. Please take a moment at the conclusion of our seminar to complete our brief evaluation. The evaluation will be sent to your email address immediately after the seminar. It is really helpful as we plan for upcoming seminars. Now, to introduce today's speakers. David Kuhn is the Veterans Program Coordinator for the Kentucky Office of Employment and Training in Frankfort, Kentucky. Keith Hosey is the Vocational Rehabilitation Specialist with the Louisville VA Medical Complex and Therapeutic and Supported Employment Services. The title of the seminar is Path to Employment for Veterans with and Without Disabilities. I'm now going to turn it over to Mr. David Kuhn.
Thank you, sir. Okay, welcome all of you that are here and those of you who are online. One of the things I want you to understand, if I'm covering something and you don't understand it, or you thought I went too fast, just go ahead, chime in, stop us. I'll go back and I'll cover it. Because if you wait till the end, you might forget what you really wanted to ask me. So, just to introduce myself, I'm David Kuhn. I am a 28-year retiree from the Army. I went through the Vocational Rehabilitation program with the Veterans Administration because I'm a 50% disabled vet. I've been working with veterans in getting them employed for almost 12 years now. So, without any further ado, I'm going to talk to you about how we do that. First of all, you need to know what the definition of a veteran is. You would think that it's probably pretty simple, but as I'm about to show you, it's not quite that easy. Here's a definition of a veteran. This individual has been married for a very long period of time. So he's a veteran. And if you do the actual definition of the word, he is a veteran. And I know there's a lot of veterans out there right now by that definition. That's not the definition we can use. We're going to start off. The federal government has a definition. You know, the person who served an active duty, naval, air, or armed forces. And I want you to look at what they use for qualifiers. Who was discharged under honorable, general, or under honorable conditions. That is key. That is key to a lot of things. Now, the VA, on the other hand, they'll tell you the person served in active service and was discharged, and this is important, released under conditions other than dishonorable. So here's two definitions of vets, but the qualifiers are different. And if you don't know anything about discharges in the service, you have honorable discharges, general under honorable, administrative discharges, bad conduct discharges, and dishonorable discharges. So as you can see, the VA has a little bit different definition than the federal government. The National Guard. This just came out in the last legislative session that they had. Yes, sir.
A question online from Mr. Craig Smith. Is medical discharge honorable?
Yes. It gets you service. A medical discharge is, and it'll say, I forgot to mention, it'll say medical on the discharge. Yes, it is. The person for National Guard, this just came out. In other words, before this, if a guardsman did not deploy to a campaign that the active military was involved in, they weren't considered a veteran. Not at all. Okay? So now they came out and said if the person spent 20 years in the Guard and served honorably, then they can be classified as a veteran. But you notice, it doesn't change or increase their VA benefits. They just get to call themselves veterans. All right? Moving on. The Commonwealth of Kentucky says 90 days active or inactive service. So now we've got all kinds of definitions floating around out there. And these are important. You need to remember these because these will affect who you can send where. And the rest of the states, every state has some definition of what they call a veteran. So those are definitions of a veteran, and they vary widely. Along with that, you have what we call qualifiers or eligibility requirements that are attached to the definition of a veteran. The first one, priority of service. What does priority of service mean? What it means is there's a law out there, it's called 20 CFR Part 1010, which says a veteran will be given the service and or training prior to a non-veteran for any DOL program funded whole or in part. Basically, if a veteran comes into a career center, goes in looking for employment, and that veteran is there, that veteran must be seen before the next person. That's just the way it is. That's the priority of service rule. Basically, yes, sir.
DOL, Department of Labor?
Department of Labor, yes. Excuse me. I'll use acronyms. Department of Labor, thank you. Department of Labor programs. If there's training, in other words, they're being sent to a training provider, and that training provider gets money from the DOL, from the Department of Labor, that veteran has to be put in front of all the other non-vets. That's what priority of service means. All right, however, the one qualifier to that is they must be eligible for the program. So if a single mother of one comes in and says, hey, I'm trying to get into this particular program, and the qualifier is a single mother, and she's a veteran, she's going to go before the rest of the senior mother, or the single mothers. If another woman comes in and says, hey, I'm a veteran, but she's not a single mother, she doesn't qualify for the program, so she can't get into it. So that's how priority of service works. VA benefits. Prior to September 1980, they really had no minimum length. After 1980, September 80, 24 months, continuous active service for a lot of your VA benefits. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
Is that retroactive?
No, ma'am. It's when it took place. So if you had the service prior or before, that thing stands. And they have ways they figure that out. Yes, sir.
And your benefits vary depending on when you served in the
Yes,
military.
they do. Everything from the GI Bill, if you were this or you were that, there's a lot of difference, but they figure that out. That's something that, what we do, we don't get into, we know, send them over there, they'll take care of it. Homeless Veterans Reintegration Program. This is a Department of Labor program. They basically post out grants, people to apply to get the grant. And in the state of Kentucky, right now, we have 2 grants that are located in Kentucky and one that's located in Tennessee that crosses over into Kentucky. All right, we have one that's located basically out of Prestonsburg, and we have one located out of Lexington. What this is you have to have 1 day of service. If the individual is a veteran, meets that requirement, and is homeless, they can enter that program. So that's their qualifier. The Jobs for Veterans State Grant. That's basically Department of Labor gives every state and territory money to hire staff to deal with veterans. In order for a veteran to be eligible for this program, they must have 180 days active duty, not for training. What that means is if you came into the Guard or the Reserves, you went to basic, you went to AIT, that's training. That doesn't count. However, if your unit was activated, in other words, brought on federal orders to participate either in a campaign or support the campaign, and you spend more than 180 days, you're good at that point because you've been activated. Vocational Rehabilitation and Employment. We call this Chapter 31. What this is veterans who have to have a disability rating of 20% or greater. It has to be a VA disability rating. What they are allowed is they enter this program, and this program will provide them rehabilitation. They'll pay for it, and then we try to get them employed. And I'll show you later on what they do with them because they send them to us. Okay? But these are qualifiers. These are your eligibility requirements. Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. These are training providers. These are people who have training dollars. They're given money from the Department of Labor for training. Okay? If you're a veteran, you need 1 day, and you qualify for any program they have unless they have additional qualifiers, i.e., if that single mother program is funded by DOL, comes through the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, then of course you'd have to be a single mother. but that's how they do it. That's their definition. Work Opportunity Tax Credit. This is for businesses. Businesses hire certain categories of veterans. They can get a tax credit up to $9,600 from their taxes, or a state tax credit of $100. But the veteran has to at least meet that requirement, 180 days, not for training.
The employer gets the tax.
The employer gets the tax credit, but the veteran has to meet that requirement so the employer becomes eligible to get the tax credit. But they also have to meet the other requirements to that. Like one of them would be, is the individual on public assistance is a big one. Has the individual been unemployed for so many months prior? So that's their stipulation. Here I want to talk about the discharge. Dishonorable discharge. If an individual is discharged dishonorably, they're virtually eliminated from almost anything. And that is pretty cut and dry. If an individual has a VA disability rating, they pretty much qualify for everything. Okay? Because it's sustained during military service, they get to qualify for virtually everything. And if you look at the regulations that cover a lot of this stuff, it'll generally always tell you a disability rating qualifies that individual. And they have various categories of the disability. So, the Kentucky Career Center. Now that I've gone through definitions and eligibility, here's where everything begins. Everything begins at this location for us, the Kentucky Career Center. You may know it as the unemployment office. A lot of people call it the unemployment office. I will just tell you that we don't unemploy anybody. We try to reemploy them. So if you want to refer to us by the unemployment stuff, please call us reemployment services, but we're actually a career center. The federal government has come out and said, oh, you should call yourself AJCs, American Job Centers. Well, us and a lot of other states, Kentucky and other states, we had already gotten career centers put out there, gotten our logos and everything else put together, so we're not changing. We just say, yeah, we're part of the American Job Center. So if you hear American Job Center, they're talking the same thing. It's an employment center. But this is where everything begins. What can it do for you? This will link you. This is where an individual can go, a business can go to get information. They can get education facility, or education is available there. Training is available there. And there are services we provide to businesses to assist the business in getting things done. This is the link. This is the first step. If anybody gets referred over, we get them into the Career Center because that's where you're going to find the people. That is the link. That will get you to the Career Center. And once you get there, you can navigate through it. We have everything on there from labor market information to veteran services that are available to training programs that are available. There's a lot of information on there and you can navigate through it. You can also locate the closest Career Center to your location. And then you'll get phone numbers. My number and my email is out there. So any veteran looking for employment services can contact me directly. That's all out there. And trust me, I get called a lot. This is some of the things we'll do at the Career Center. We'll provide job search assistance, resumes, a lot of resume writing assistance, interviewing skills, training, testing, employment opportunities, job referrals. We refer people out to jobs all the time. And oh, by the way, remember that priority of service? Veterans are the first ones to get the job referrals. And what we have done within our system, if an employer puts a job into the system will automatically match everybody to that job. But if you're a veteran and you've checked the veteran box, there's a flag put on you. You get notified, you get an email that says, hey, you've matched to this job. You are the only one that has an active link to get to where you apply. Everybody else has to wait 24 hours for a second email to show up that has an active link. So that's how we provide priority service for job referrals. You can get labor market information if you're a business. You can find out, plus if you're also a job seeker. You can get labor market information and career pathways. This is something new that we've started. Basically, we're trying to start you from the time you come in, get you on a career pathway. What education do you need? What kind of specialized training do you need? Where can we get you into this career, and where can it take you? That is something new that has started in the career centers. Also, we have business services. I didn't put that up there, but we have business service things. What do we do for business services? We have, people who go out and talk to businesses and assist them. If a business is needing individuals, we have people that can help them find individuals. If the business needs labor market information, we can provide it to them. If the business needs a place to interview somebody, we provide that to them. And we've even have career centers that will take applications for the business, process them, and say, yeah, these are the ones that you're looking for, these are the ones that don't work, and get it out to the business. There's a lot of things we do on the business side of the house. Plus, we assist the businesses with getting that tax credit if they're eligible. So a lot of things go down in the career center, and a lot of people do not know everything that happens there. Like I say, they call us the unemployment office. And yeah, we don't even do that anymore. Unemployment is not done in our offices anymore. That's done by phone or across the internet. So you also get access to training and on-the-job training funds. If you remember when I talked about the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, okay, those people are the trainers. They're found in the career centers. There's somebody in there that works that. Also, you access that. That's where you can access the particular training you might be looking for to see if you're eligible to qualify for. If you do, they have training dollars. They can help you get into that training and help you pay for it. Also, they also have on-the-job training funds, which basically an employer is willing to hire you. We get you an on-the-job training contract, which means we're going to pay half of that salary for 6 months. That's a win-win for a business. And they love that particular program. And if you can take that on-the-job training funds and attach it to the work opportunity tax credit, a lot of times we can get veterans working in a job where it costs the business nothing for 6 months. Costs them nothing. And then generally that gives that business time. Now when we do the OJT, we are letting them know we are making the assumption you're going to hire this individual at the end of that 6-month period. And for the most part, yes, they do. So those are two things that we kind of put together, that work opportunity tax credit and the OJT funds, that we kind of get to the employer and say, hey, here, we can help you out. Because a business looks at one thing: how can you help me with my bottom line? And this is probably one of the really, really very successful things we can do with businesses. They love this particular stuff. Referral to partner agencies or other organizations. A lot of you out there, sitting out there listening to this, you're probably a partner organization with us. I know Voc Rehab, you are. Goodwill Industries, you do. A lot of you out there, we refer to you. If we know where you are and what you can provide for us, we have an individual that needs your services, we're going to refer them out to you. And also, contrast, if you know somebody needs employment services, refer them back to us. We'll partner with anybody that can assist us. Here's the thing: Jobs for Veterans State Grant. This is the biggest one in the state. We are a DOL funded program. Every individual that works in this program is a state employee, but we are funded by the federal government through a grant. It's a non-competitive staffing grant. What that means is we don't have to compete for it. We get it every year. And it goes to all the states, all the territories. They all get money to hire staff. The funds, the way they base the funds, the amount of money that we get is based on the number of unemployed veterans in the state, an average over a 3-year period by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Now, there's some good news there. The Kentucky grant, the money that I get every year, has been steadily decreasing for the last 4 years. What does that mean? That means that we are reducing the number of unemployed veterans that are in the state. However, it also means I'm going to have less staff to deal with the remainder, because as the money drops, you have to look at, how many staff can I afford to hire or keep on the books. So that's kind of a double-edged sword. The better you do, the less money you get. But our ultimate goal is to get all veterans employed. The funds, we hire 2 types of staff. We hire what we call a local veterans employment representative. We refer to that individual as a leaver. So you'll probably hear me throughout this course say, yeah, the leaver. This is who I'm talking about. And I'll get into what they do a little later on. The other one, the Disabled Veterans Outreach Program Specialist, I'll refer to them as a DVOP, okay? Those are the two type of staff. Those are the only staff that can be hired under this grant, and they have very specific duties. The state, basically me, I determine the number and type of staff that we're going to have on the books. And how do I do that? I do that based on my veteran demographics. What I'll do is I'll look at how many veterans are using our services, where are these individuals located, what percent of those are disabled. I'll look at what are the business demographics. In other words, what kind of businesses do we have? Where is our growth? Where is our decline? Where do I really need to put staff to deal with what's going on in that particular area? And I do that every year when I ask for, I have to go back and modify the grant every year, basically any changes I need to make. I do that, and I do that to determine what kind of staff, where I need them, and when I can hire them. And the other thing, all staff hired by this grant must be a veteran. You talk to anybody that's hired by this grant, and they are veterans. Most of them are disabled veterans. Because when we hire, there's a little regulation we have to follow when we do hiring. It says if we hire and we have veterans that are applied, and we have a disabled vet and a non-disabled vet, all of them really close to being the best candidates, we must hire the disabled vet. That is a law. So most of the staff will be disabled veterans that we hire. This is what a leaver, local veterans employment representative, does. This is, for all practical purposes, the face of a veteran to the business community. This is the person they're looking at when they're talking about it. This LVR, the leaver, he facilitates the employment and training and placement services. Now, what do I mean by facilitate? He's talking to a lot of people. He's the salesman. He's the recruiter, all wrapped into one. This person is out there. You won't find them in the office very much. They are constantly on the road, out there hitting the businesses. In fact, sitting back here is one of our local veterans employment reps, Mr. Bruce Quire. He works out of the Lexington office. Some people who are listening may know this gentleman, but he's generally on the road all the time. And what he does, he'll coordinate unions, apprenticeship programs, businesses, to promote and secure employment opportunities for veterans. He's out there pounding the pavement. He's talking to businesses. And what he does a lot more listening than he does talking. Because he's sitting there, and we arm our leavers with a lot of open-ended questions. Because what we're trying to get at is, hey, you're the business. What's going on? What is your retention rate? Why do you think your retention rate is the way it is? What can we do to assist you? What kind of staff, what kind of skill sets do you need? We also ask our LVERs when they're visiting a business, if that business will allow them, let them go tour the business. Ask to see if you can tour the business. We want them to do that because what we're looking for is two things. A, what skill sets are being used in that business? And B, what is the climate and the culture? Because that's important. If you want to get a good match between an employee and a business, you have to take that into consideration. What is the climate? What is the culture of that place? Is this individual going to fit into that particular type of culture? They'll promote credentialing and licensing. And right now, credentialing and licensing opportunities for veterans, we're not really doing a lot of that right now. But I can tell you at the state level, I sit on a panel, and we have attacked this particular issue head on, and we are starting to make a lot of headway with basically talking to all the licensing agencies and saying, hey, this is a medic coming out of the military. What do we need to get this individual qualified as a nurse? Instead of sending them all the way back through it again, what bridge program can we put together to shorten that time? Those are things we're doing, and we've made a lot of progress on that. And once we get it out there, then we'll get it out to the field and say, hey, these are our bridge programs. This is what we can do. So we'll start working with those organizations that hire those type of people. And one of our biggies, inform federal contractors of the process to recruit qualified veterans. A federal contractor, anybody that gets money from the federal government to the tune of $100,000 or more is a federal contractor. Federal contractors have a lot of requirements on them. basically they have to post their jobs with the Career Center. And the leaver is the person that's out there telling them, hey, you need to post that with us. Or you need to post it to an agency, and they call it the National Labor Exchange. If you post it with them, then they feed it to us, which will also suffice as you posting your jobs with us. But they let them know that, because I will tell you there's this little organization called the Office of Federal Contract Compliance, the OFCCP. They are the ones who oversee federal contractors. They look at them. And what will happen is every so often, if they're a federal contractor, they're going to get audited by the OFCCP. And the first person they contact in the state is me. And they'll send me this little list and say, hey, we need to know every job posted by this particular contractor in this location during this time frame. And so if I send back we don't have any, well, then they go talk to the business, and then the business has to keep certain records. But we are the ones who basically start that process. They talk to me first, and we tell them, yeah, they have, or no, they haven't. And so the local Veterans Employment Rep is out there telling them, this is how you do this. This is how you keep yourself out of trouble as a business. Plus, while we're doing that, we're also trying to push a couple of veterans toward them. So, Disabled Veterans Outreach Program Specialist. This person is the only staff that literally sits down and works with veterans. This person, why I call him the DVOP. He does that. He provides one-on-one services to veterans, and the key part here is significant barriers to employment. And what it is DOL, Department of Labor, has designated 9 categories that say if they have one of these categories, they fit in one of here, that's a significant barrier. Those are the only personnel we are allowed to see. And I'll give them to you. First one, disabled or special disabled veterans. What does that mean, disabled? 0% to 10%. That's a disabled veteran. A special disabled veteran is 20% or greater, or excuse me, 30% or greater. A disabled veteran is 0 to 20. A special disabled is 30 or greater. Now, I want to point out there's a difference between disabled veteran and a veteran with a disability. There is a difference there. A lot of times a veteran will come to us and say, well, I'm a disabled vet. And then, okay, what's your VA disability rating? Oh, it's 25%. No, it's not, because the VA only has disability ratings in 10% intervals. There is no 5s or 3s or whatever. It's 0s and 5 or 0 and 10s. That's it. And so if a veteran says, oh, I've got 25%, we're going to say, let me see your VA disability letter. Where is that disability letter? If the individual says, well, I don't have one, I can't find it, well, then we can go online, get them an e-benefits account, all right, because every veteran can get an e-benefits account, and we can go online and say, okay, let's pull it down. Let's see. Now, that if a disabled veteran has that VA disability rating, that's fine. But a lot of times you'll find a veteran that comes to us that it may have a Social Security disability rating that they got working on the job after the military service, which was, that disability was not a result of military service, so therefore you are not considered a disabled veteran for the program. And that's one of the things that we really stress. Understand, is it a disabled veteran or a veteran with a disability? Okay? A lot of times if it's a veteran with a disability, we're probably going to refer them over to the Office of Vocational Rehabilitation. Homeless. Homeless veterans. The minute a homeless veteran walks into the office, they're immediately going to be seen. And we are going to start the process to find them shelter, get them hooked up with somebody. Now, if you remember, I said we had 3 homeless veteran grants in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. We have what is called, with homeless veterans, there's this new thing that came out about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. It's called co-enrollment. So if a veteran winds up in an HVRP grantee or homeless veteran grantee, they must enroll them in our system. And they will start referring them over to these gentlemen, this Disabled Veterans Outreach Program Specialists, to start working with them to help them find employment. That is that's a requirement of that grant. Now, if we get a homeless veteran in, we'll refer them over to that grant if they'll go in, or if that grantee is not in that area. There's a lot of times we're working with homeless shelters that are located in various areas. All of these Disabled Veterans Outreach Program Specialists know where those shelters are in their area. That is a requirement. That's something they must know. And generally, when we get our hands on a homeless veteran, we can get them housed in probably less than an hour. We can have a place for them to go, because that's how tight we wound into this particular issue.